Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Crystal Noel Jalil. Me and Isaiah Spencer will be your host for today. We're giving you 5 minutes to get together your poetry, your questions, your comments, and then come back to us and we will start the show. That is 5 minutes until we will start the show and participate with you in sharing our takes on the racial summit. Hi, everybody. My name is Crystal Noel Jalil. Welcome once again to the Racial Justice Summit. Me and my partner in rhymes, Isaiah Spencer, are going to be hosting you tonight. We also have Natik Jalil down, and there he is. He's going to be live painting with us. Feel free to get your poetry, your questions, your comments, and art supplies for the jam and to participate with us. We are open to hear your voice and definitely want to make sure that you are heard and that we can hear from you. Um, Before we start, I'm going to go ahead and give the mic to Isaiah to introduce himself and talk a little bit about what we're going to get into.
Before you get started, Isaiah, I did want to say a little bit about your organization before everyone starts getting into the art piece today. So we do have Crystal, Isaiah, and Natik from the Colored Section Black Arts Collective. The Colored Section is the brainchild of the late master artist and jazz musician George Gist. We honor his memory by striving to become a true artist community that truly supports its members' needs. Our goal is to make paths for those artists who are not easily able to enter into creative opportunities through the front door. We believe that if artists know each other and work together, then none of us should be without work. Through workshops, apprenticeships, seasonal group shows, and regular collaborative efforts, We strive to build stronger lives and careers for all of our members. So the Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit welcomes you all, and now I will pass it off to Isaiah to get us started. You're muted if you're speaking.
Thanks. You would have figured after all the time we spend on Zoom and in virtual meetings, you would figure that you remember to take yourself off mute, but those things still happen, right? So it's all good. Thank y'all for joining us. We're happy to have y'all here on this Sunday evening. If you're in Pittsburgh or you're somewhere along the East Coast, in the, I guess we'll call it the calm before the storm, before we get hit with all that snow. So we hope you're comfy, you're cozy, and you're ready to hear some good poetry, have some good conversation, see Natik live paint some really beautiful and wonderful art. And so we hope, for these next 2 hours, we can keep you entertained and we can keep you engaged. So what we're gonna do is Crystal and I are both gonna do some poetry to start us off. And then once we're done, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a round table, if you will, discussion about equity in action. So the theme of the Racial Justice Summit, right? And navigating what that looks like, what that means to us, and then how exploring that intersection and how equity intersects with the arts and how we do that in a number of our own respective art lanes or just our fields in general. So at that point, that's where we'll really welcome dialogue through the comments. So feel free to drop questions, thoughts, opinions. It's a space where we're all meant to share and engage and have really thought-provoking discussions and all that. So keep it respectful. But we're all here to exchange information and thoughts and stuff like that. So we really welcome your input in some of that. And then at the end there, and while all this is going on, so what you'll be able to see for Natik, he's going to be taking everything that we talk about, the words we say, the themes that we discuss, and he's going to be incorporating it into his live piece. So you'll literally be able to see that transform as this whole event goes on. And we do this at a lot of our open mics. And it's just a really awesome thing to say. We got great feedback on it. People are always like, wow, like I never expected it to look like this based off of the conversation. So we like to combine a lot of avenues for art. So yeah, I think that's the rundown of everything that we're going to do. Crystal, did I miss anything?
Us and this mute button, man. I feel like you covered everything. I think we should probably tell these fine folks who we are individually.
Yes.
What we do.
Indeed. You want me to start or you want to start?
I mean, I can start.
Okay.
So my name's Crystal. Once again, my name's Crystal Noel Jaleel. I'm a spoken word poet, jewelry maker, sometimes model. I've just started to say that I'm an entertainer because I do a lot of things. I feel like our generation understands more than anybody that we are people of many slashes. You know what I mean? We all do a lot of things, and that's what life has been. But I'm also part of the colored section with Isaiah and Natik and several members that you can't see, but they're out there listening, supporting us from their homes, from their churches, from their jobs, from their beds. And I'm saying that like not in jest. Artists need to rest, right? Most important, like everyday people need to rest, but I feel like there's a lot of pressure on artists to create when they feel like other folks are doing things. You know what I mean? And you see somebody that puts out like 10,000 Instagram posts in a day, and you're like, "Whoa, bro! I didn't even lift up my notebook today, bro. I don't feel like I'm lifted." Yeah. So we're encouraging of making sure that artists, Black artists especially, rest on their days off. And so I'm going to turn it back to Isaiah, introduce himself.
Right. Awesome. So my name is Isaiah Spencer. I am currently I'm a third year PhD student in civil and environmental engineering at the University of Pittsburgh. I got my bachelor's in civil and environmental engineering from the University of Pittsburgh as well. So I'm an engineer by trade, but I am also an artist. Primarily, I'm a spoken word artist. I've been doing spoken word ever since 2015, but I've been writing ever since 2012. And 2015 was really the genesis of me as a performer. And that's around the time where I got to meet Crystal and Natik, and they became the arts family, my mentors, big sister, big brother, and so, at this point, I primarily do spoken word. We had a couple of my friends and I started a group called the Innate Project back in 2016, where we were really focused on providing spaces for people via spoken word opportunities, open mics, but providing spaces for people to get up and share what they wanted to share, because we found there was a lack of spaces for people our age to do that, but not just that, people our age in community with people who were older than us, but also people who were younger than us. And so we really had a mentality of like, there's power in having a diversity of thought, right? There's power in having people from different age ranges and different generations all contributing to the same conversation, and we can all take something from the way from each other. So we did that, and then as time went on, we were on a little bit of a hiatus, but with the birth of the colored section, we came back into the picture, and so we help out at the open mics and things of that nature. On the side, I'm also a visual artist. I like to spray paint, and I like to use acrylic paints as well. So, like Crystal, I try to be in a couple of different lanes at once. It keeps things from getting boring. So, and I think that's something a lot of artists can relate to, right? Always trying to find something to keep the gears turning, keep the wheels moving. So that's a little bit about me. So we can just start with the poetry.
All right.
Yeah, and you went first. I can go first on the poetry.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna read to you all. I'll do this one. I'm gonna start us off with a poem I wrote last year. And at the time, I'm being a engineering student. I'm often in spaces where I am one of a few, and that gets challenging at times. And I think a lot of us can relate to being in spaces where you're one of the few, if not the only one. And as I tend to do when emotions boil up or thoughts gel together, I tend to walk around my house. You can ask my housemates. I walk around and be like, "Oh, the pen is hot today. The pen is hot," and I start to write, and I get to writing. And so this particular piece, one day I was sitting there thinking about microaggressions, and it really started back in 2018. I was in Flint, Michigan for the summer, watching the fireworks on 4th of July, and I was really inspired. I pull inspiration from a lot of places. I wanted to write a poem about fireworks. And I started writing, and I had one of those moments where I started writing. I was like, I'm not ready to write this poem yet. There was something in me that was like, you can't write this yet. And then lo and behold, in 2021, it all came full circle. I was able to write this poem, and I connected it to microaggressions that I have faced and microaggressions that I know my friends, my family have faced in their different workspaces and school spaces and all that. And so I hope to convey that to you. And this poem is called The Little Things. If I can find it, I will read it. Okay. It's the little things. It's the little things. It's the little things. It's being asked, do you listen to rap or make rap music? It's being asked to always be the bigger person. It's being called upon to represent all Black voices. It's being asked to do the work with little to no recompense. It's having your talents unappreciated, but then appropriated when convenient. It's facing the same beast over and over and over and over, knowing that you may never be alive to see things change. It's waking up in a constant state of rage daily. It's waking up and mourning the deaths of those who you will never get the chance to meet. It's picking and choosing your battle so wisely as to not lose the war while balancing getting into a little bit of good trouble just to keep the pace pushing forward. It's standing in the face of adversity when your back is against the wall, knowing that there's no way out. It's teaching those who do not want to be educated. It's fearing for your life in all senses of the phrase, whether that's in the classroom or on the street or in the lab or even in your own home. Yo, I'm telling you, it's the little things. It's the little things that shake your soul. It's the little things that make your heart pulse with rage. It's the little things that make you want to explode like a firework on the 4th of July and paint the sky with the flashes of the pain and anguish that you go through constantly but rarely show. It's the little things that make you want to go postal, stamping everyone you see and everything you hear as the enemy, shipping all formalities and systemic nuances out of your state of mind, better yet, out of you, escalating the circadian cognitive dissonance you feel because the system was not built for you. P.S. The you I'm referring to is me, so please don't try and center yourself in this conversation because it's the little things like that that push me and my people into the pits of pessimism with minuscule hopes of return. It's the little things that eat away at you. It's the little things that will break you. It's the little things that add up over time and become the big things we spend so much time sitting in meetings discussing, running around in circles, doing flips and tricks in the name of saying that we did something, when in reality, all we did was put on one huge circus for the masses to see.
Come on, sir.
Again, I say to you, it's the little things that make you want to say, forget the tightrope and take the deep dive. No net below to catch you. It's the little things that cause that and so many more emotions that a one-off poem or a book or a movie or a diversity forum cannot even begin to capture. It's the little things that hurt the most. Conversely, it's also the little things that mean the most, but no matter how you spin it, it's the little things that always have the biggest impact. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. I appreciate the snaps.
So something that we need to do that we haven't done, because we know you're here, but we can't see you. So we're going to give you a quick indoctrination on the behavior that is expected at the open mic. So whenever you hear something you like, you can do like I did, and you can snap your fingers, right? You can make a sound like like good food, right? If it's striking a chord with you. And now that we're in the digital age, you can do just like B. Nicole Smith did. You can throw those exclamation signs up in the chat. You can encourage him, all of that good stuff. And the reason being is we are artists and we're sensitive about our shit. Can I say that? Can I say that? I said that. All right, I said it. So whenever you're performing, sometimes it can feel like you're talking to a brick wall. So that encouragement from our audience is appreciated, and we do appreciate you. Thank you for listening to us, and thank you again, Isaiah, for that piece. I think about that piece a lot, honestly. Like, girl, something will happen when I'm at work or when I'm grocery shopping or something, and I'll hear your voice saying, "It's the little things."
It's real.
Somebody cuts you off with their cart, or they walk past you and don't say excuse me, and you're like, it's the little things.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not afforded that same kind of grace or those same kinds of opportunities to do things that are considered rude to others. So I guess I'll get into my piece.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I fear I've integrated my people into a burning house. I fear I have integrated my people into a burning house. I picture him sitting at his desk, head in hands, brow furrowed, as he comes to this conclusion. I fear that I've integrated my people into a burning house. We fought for this, lost our jobs for this, had our pictures taken by racists protesting our lives on the sidelines. How do I tell them this is not what I had in mind when I said we are free at last? He considers his plans versus God's plans. See, he was left smelling the smoke. It's been haunting him for days since it struck him, hit him in the face that economically people perish and our neighborhoods are gerrymandered. Using our own votes as kindling, gentrification made Martin Luther King's block a new place for the young, rich, and white, as though their grandparents never tried to bomb his home. The smoke fills the room. He feels himself choke on the future for us. He had to have known, seen it in a vision, that they would give us an illusion of freedom while still segregating our seating. Can you imagine how he felt to know that Black folks finally are getting their foot in the door was only the beginning of the beginning of the beginning? He knew we needed more than this. More than this. He wanted more for us. And sensing this pensiveness, Belafonte, fraught with nerves, asked, what can we do? It was like once Martin said it, Belafonte could smell it too. Like you and you and you in the chat room too. You see the glowing embers lighting the room. It tends to follow you, doesn't it? Sometimes it catches onto your clothes, sparked by things like school to prison pipelines and suddenly strangers touching your hair uninvited, the vocalized assumptions, appropriations of Blackness. Yes, this is why the house, the heart, the hood is burning. I fear I've integrated my people into a burning house. Haven't we all wondered ourselves if we were there, what we would do or how we would help? Especially knowing what our ancestors had suffered and sacrificed their bodies to the whip or the tree or the dogs at night, spitting fire hoses, raped, tortured our rights. But King could see that even after the victory, and that he wanted more for us, more for the poor, more for our generations, more for all the children. And it hit him right then. The only way to help us was to become firemen. And the days later, he died before he could see the beauty and the tragedy of, I fear I've integrated my people into a burning house. His words have been haunting me for weeks myself as a young Black woman attempting to embark on adulting. My chest has been tight with the stress for days. My breathing has become restricted, yet I am you and we are all here to survive. We have adapted to our climate for centuries, yet this time, this transformation, the atmosphere has released a gasoline rain with too many Twitter fingers playing with the matches in the house and the scented. The entire nation has started to blaze, and I often fear for the men in my life. My husband, our hypothetical children, young ladies and babies we mentor. How do you bring life into a world when it feels like your world is ending unless you and me, we evolve? Learn to breathe fire and swallow the flames, flying above the enemy of flame like a phoenix. When we soar over them, there's no denying that we are lit and unite in our decision to be fearless. Lift your voices and sing. After all that we've been through, you can't deny that we've been changed. Damn. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you for your time. Stop.
Jeez.
Oh, God. That one always gets me, bro.
Jeez. We got in this. We all must become firemen.
Bro.
Jeez.
Wow. I just got really emotional. I've learned and still learning to become intentional about the things I say. Thank you so much, Shahari. Thank you, B. Nicole Smith, and thank you, Mandy, and of course Isaiah. But I've learned, and I'm learning, because this is like an active practice, to be intentional about the things that I say, because the emotions they evoke, the stuff it does to your spirit, is real. And I do feel like spoken word is magic. You know, I do feel like being a griot, being the people that are the storytellers that give the oral history of you and your people and the things you went through and your families and all that, I do feel like it's a big deal, for lack of a better word. And so you have these moments where the stuff that you write can engulf you, can consume you for good and your bad, you know. And so you do get that church feeling, even off of your own stuff. And it's, woo. I didn't spray my makeup today, y'all. I'm trying not to. I can't be crying it off. I can't. All right. But yeah, thank you so much, y'all. I appreciate you and your feedback.
Yes. And that's real. Just hit on that. Spoken word is magic, right? And what you write, it's who you are, right?
Yeah.
It's a part of you. And so I think being intentional is just the spoken word artist, right? That's something we all strive to do, right? Especially, but I think it brings up an interesting point too. As much as we strive, and I've noticed this within my own work as it's evolved throughout the years. I remember being back during my first performances, first time I got up on a stage, and I was so concerned with people wanting to hear me.
Yeah.
Right. And being consumed. So the projection, even I was, hitting things, pronunciating things, inflecting things that shouldn't even been inflected. But as I've grown and as I've changed, I think the one thing that you learn throughout the process is that at some point it switches from wanting to be heard to actually wanting to be understood. And then beyond that, wanting to understand those who hear what you have to say.
Yes, sir. That's a word right there. That is a word. That is a word. Yeah. Yeah.
So if we could, I have a piece about that.
Oh. Well,
I found a piece about that. That's when you were talking about, I was like, oh wait. So this piece is called Understanding.
Okay.
And it's really it's a challenge centered around what I just talked about, right? Do we actually just want to be heard? Or do we actually want to listen to other people and understand other people. And I think that ties in perfectly with the theme of the summit, right? Talking about equity and action. A big part of equity is being able to shut down your incessant desire to want to be heard and to hear others, right?
Go off, sir.
So understanding, right? You see, it's one thing to go somewhere and hear what people are saying, but it's something completely different to actually understand what the implications are. I mean this generation, but also the previous generations, all of us together, as much as we talk, as much as we say we want to make an impact, I would submit that we rarely complete the first step of closing our mouths and opening our minds. Or we make some sort of half-ass effort and allow our mouths to close, but refuse to open ourselves, to open our hearts, to listen, to understand fully. Let me ask you, right? Think back to the last time somebody came up to you and told you something heavy, and you responded with some seemingly deep phrase to try and aid in the processing of their thoughts. I want to know, did you respond for the sake of saying you helped? Or did you go beyond the words, become like Alice and dive deep into the rabbit hole in search of some meaning, some further connection? Did you hear the cries of the fearful and abused, or did you only manage to pick up the shattered glass pieces of their everything's fine? Did you internalize and digest the frustration and suffering of the less fortunate and struggling? Or did you only take a tiny bite, chew it up, and spit it out by offering a few bucks here and there? Did you grasp and latch on to the fact that social injustice comes in many shapes and sizes? Or did you let your grip slip and let societal assumptions lead your morality and your own consciousness? We want y'all to let that marinate. And I encourage you to step back and take it all in. Chase after the deeper meanings. Question what is presented to you. And at the end of it all, work to come to a more holistic understanding of any and all situations presented in front of you. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. I feel like you touched on so many different things, but the main thing is being present, for other people, and really, like you said, sometimes we're so excited to get to what we want to say that we're not even hearing the person that is in front of us, or next to us. And usually it's the people that, are literally in front of us and next to us, like in our lives. Like we're less likely to really hear our partners, right? Or our siblings, or, people that we share these intimate connections with. And I like that you challenged us all to just make a good use of silence and instead of trying to fill the space. I feel like in a time where we're constantly bombarded with people trying to communicate with us, like life has become really invasive, really intrusive. Like you take your phone with you to the bathroom, and there's now the Bounty paper company is trying to get you to buy something, you know what I mean? Or you're in the hospital and there's an ad that pops up maybe about something that you walk past, kind of a thing. And so I think your challenge to just sit with people, their emotions, their thoughts. It's kind of revolutionary thought in a time of being bombarded by outside forces and maybe our own internal monologue, if that makes sense.
And I think about it too, and just in terms of performing, even right, we sit there and or public speaking in general, you sit there and the number one tip people tend to give you is like, oh, cut your ums, right? Take your pause, but inside you even feel like you're like, no, I can't pause. Like, even though to the audience, right, a pause is it's maybe a second.
Yeah.
But to you, it feels like an eternity.
It does.
And so I have to fill the void. I have to keep feeling. I have to keep saying something. I have to. And it's like, no, you hit the nail on the head, right? Silence is your friend. And I think that goes beyond the point because I do a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion work at Pitt within my department. And I present with one of my mentors. We gave a talk on diversity, equity, and inclusion a couple of different times. And that's one of the things we talk about when we talk about equity. One of the key things is managing the volume. Right? Managing the volume, but also managing the balance too. So I always use the example, if we had a call full of hundreds of people, or if everybody was able to be on stage with us, and I say, hey, everybody play your favorite song.
Wow.
At the loudest volume, we wouldn't hear anything. It's all destructive frequencies. There's nothing constructive about that, right? But if I say, hey, Jess, your turn. You play us a snippet of your favorite song. Okay, Crystal, you're next. Natik, you're next.
Come on, sir.
Mandy, you're next, right? Now we get to hear everybody's point. We get to hear everybody's favorite song. It's balance, right? And so with that, when you're in spaces and you talk about equity and inclusion, there are going to be times where you have to turn your volume up because there are people depending on you because you have a certain privilege that other people don't.
That's a word. That's a bar, actually. Right?
There are certain people depending on you because you have a privilege that some people don't. So you have to turn your volume up and be conscious enough to recognize, hey, this is one of those moments where I got to speak up.
Yeah.
But the converse is also true and happens just as often. There are going to be times where you don't have a certain privilege and you need to turn your volume down in order for other people's voices to be heard. I'm an amplifier.
Speaking of which, speaking of amplified and amplifiers, I am the host of the Amplified Open Mic at the Oringer in Braddock. We're on a little bit of a hiatus because the COVID is COVIDing. And while art is important, your lives are more important. And so I made the decision that we're just not going to do that until these numbers come down, y'all. We can maybe do it from the house, from the crib. I feel like poetry, the art in general, is a very intimate thing. And so to be able to, share your deepest thoughts or to share something you created from your home is, I don't know. I don't want to say this. I won't say it's better necessarily, but it's way more intimate than even in the open mic, even in the stage, So that's how we're going to be doing that until the COVID numbers come down, because we want to see you live in the space, but we don't want to see you live in the space to your detriment, if that makes sense. So, oh, wow. We've got Benita Lee Penn in the place, y'all. Give her flowers, man. She's been doing this poetry, writing, publishing, teaching for a minute now. And so she's saying, why do you write poetry? Is it for yourself, for others, to share something? Why is it important for your voice, what you say? what needs to be heard, what needs to be written. Those are all amazing, amazing questions. And I feel like we all should be cognizant of those things. It makes me think of when the first pieces with the poem that turned me into a spoken word poet is Poetry by Nikki Giovanni. Read it and had to memorize it in college. And I got to my English class and I spit this thing. And first they were like, whoa, slow down. And then I slowed down and read it. And they were like, do you do spoken word? Do you do that? And I was like, you mean like Deaf Poetry Jam? Because I'm old, low key. But yeah, man. And so, matter of fact, maybe I'm gonna find that.
Okay.
Not Nikki Giovanni, Thug Life.
Nikki, good old Nikki Giovanni up in here.
Yes. I'm gonna see if I can find it because I feel like.
And with that too, while you're finding that, I think there's something really powerful I've realized about reading other people's work. And this goes back to the whole thing about spoken word being magic, right? You can feel what other people are trying to convey. It's more than just you read the words and that's that, right? If you've heard the person before, like anytime, so we have an exhibit up downtown, the Invisible exhibit. It's an art gallery and art exhibit surrounding mental health challenges, and right, the stigma that mental health is the invisible sickness, right? And so we have some of our poems up in there, and Crystal has a poem up in there. And every time I see Crystal's work on a page, right, I've heard Crystal perform. I hear Crystal in my head as I'm reading it, right? But beyond that, too, when I read those words out loud, it's not Isaiah reading those words. It's the impact Crystal has had on Isaiah that's reading those words. Wow. You see what I'm saying? So it's really interesting how all that blends together. So same thing when I go and read Nikki Giovanni, when I read Claudia Rankin, or even Jay Oriola, right? One of my mentors, impact. It's the piece of them that they left with me that comes out, which is, I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I found it.
Oh, bet.
All right, so we're gonna go on a journey, y'all. We're gonna go. I'm gonna take you with me to CCAC, and I'm like 19. And I'm in school for nursing, but I got to take this English class to do that because they make you do your prerequisites before you get to your nursing classes because college is a racket. But those are my thoughts. So our teacher gave us the assignment of we had to memorize a piece. And I was looking through. She had this big, thick, like phone book, thick printout, because that's how long ago I was in school. And so I picked this one, and I'm going to go ahead and read this for us because I do have memorized, but it's been a minute, so I don't want to subject us to that. This is Nikki Giovanni, and the piece is called Poetry. Poetry is emotion. Graceful as a fawn, gentle as a teardrop, strong in the eye, finding a place in a crowded room. We poets tend to think our words are golden, though emotion speaks too loudly to be defined by silence. Sometimes after midnight or just before dawn, we sit, typewriter in hand, pulling loneliness around us, forgetting our lovers or children who are sleeping, ignoring the weary wariness of our own logic to compose a poem. No one understands it. It never says, love me, for poets are beyond love. It never says, accept me, for poets For poems speak not of acceptance but controversy. It only says, I am, therefore I concede that you are too. A poem is pure energy, horizontally contained between the mind of the poet and the ear of the reader. It does not sing. Discard the ear, for poetry is song. If it does not delight, discard the heart, for poetry is joy. If it does not inform, then close off the brain, for it is dead. If it cannot heed the insistent message that life is precious, which is all we poets wrapped up in our loneliness are trying to say. Thank you, y'all. And thank you, Nikki Giovanni, wherever you are. Looking back over this, I see how it happened. That is like an invocation. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way that you read this, memorize this, and something doesn't happen to you. And so, like, wow, that's a life-changing piece.
Yeah.
But thank you to the audience for indulging me and letting me read that. The title of the poem is called Poetry, and if you Google it, it'll help you to put quotation marks around it and then her name. And this is how, I'm going to see if I can put it up for my phone for y'all. This is how long ago this thing came out. She was born in 1945, but if you're somebody that's a reader, you'll know what this is when you see the text and it looks like that with the numbers next to it, where it looks like you did this probably on a typewriter. You know what I mean? Yeah, can I put it in the chat? I don't know if I can do that. But yeah, it's poetry, and then you spell her name Nikki, and then Giovanni is G as in go, I as in ice cream, O as in orange, V as in vanilla, A as in apple, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, I as in ice cream. Natik, I see you back there working.
You got a whole face up there.
Right? What's spooky about Natik is you'll be talking just like we're talking, and he's created a whole life out of nothing. Thank you so much for putting that in the chat, y'all. I appreciate you. But yeah, he can literally like create a whole person in less than an hour. Yeah. Thank you so much for putting that in there. Let me give it back to you, Isaiah.
Huh? I think we can go back to Bonita Lee Penn's questions. I think they're dope questions. And we can talk show style. So I'll ask you, Crystal, why do you write poetry?
I write poetry because I feel like there is this internal dialogue that I have. Like, I'll be ever since I was small, even where I'll be in a space or I'll be walking on the street or doing the dishes, and I'll just start hearing. I don't want to say hearing because people won't think I'm crazy, but I'll just start. A phrase will pop into my head, right? And I used to sing them, and I'd make up my own little songs and stuff like that, and I would sing it until it didn't go anywhere, kind of a thing. But then I started to like write this, and as I wrote them, it was like, whoa, these are stories that aren't quite stories. It's like a patchwork quilt of life in a way, describing life in a way. And so for me, it's like a stream of consciousness thing that I go back and refine, where it's something inside of me that I need to say, that maybe it's a subconscious thing or something that I'm working out. I was watching a poetry slam once, and the poet said that if you listen to a lot of poets, you'll hear them where they're all trying to say the same. They've all got a similar story in all their pieces, like separately. Like Isaiah's pieces, if you listen to him, there's something that he's working out in all of his separate pieces that make one statement, right? And I feel like the same thing is true for me too. That there's something inside it. There's a narrative. There's a story that I'm trying to work out, and I think that's why I write. And I think the other reason why I write is for Black folks, for Black girls, and particularly, you're told to shut up a lot. Like from when you're real small, it's shut up. It's stay out of grown folks' business. It's none of your business. It's there's a myriad of different ways that it's communicated that your voice doesn't matter. And so for me, poetry is a revolutionary act in that way, because there's always been somebody trying to tell me to stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, in this lane, who can stop me, bro? Like, and before it was like a private thing, like, oh, I'm writing this little thing and it's like, this is to myself. And I could express myself. But now it's like, I feel like I've been given these words and this voice, even the quality of my voice, for a reason. And you can't, and I don't think that's not something that can be physically stopped, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question? Was that long?
Yes, definitely.
So what about you, for yourself?
Yeah, for me, I have a little bit of a similar background, right? So I actually started my journey with writing. I was, unlike most of the kids growing up, or most of the Black kids that went to my high school growing up, because I didn't listen to a lot of rap music, all like that. I'm a big anime fan though. So I listen to a lot of Japanese rock and Japanese pop music. And at the time, I was so enamored with music being this universal language, right? Me being able to understand what somebody else who speaks a completely different language is saying, even though I don't understand a lick of what they're saying. Right?
Yeah.
And so because I was so enamored with it, I found anime openings. If you watch anime, you know they hit hard. Anime endings, they hit hard, right? So I found them. I found the ones I liked. And I was like, I'm going to write over them. I'm going to write covers of them.
Yeah.
And I would just do it for fun. It's something to do. It's something cool I like to do. And then it became, I would write one, and then I would go look up the actual lyrics. And it became like a game with myself, right? It was like, okay, can I figure out what this artist is trying to convey, even though I don't know their native language? And so it became fun. And then at a point, right, you realize, like I said, it was a game. So the game became boring. And I was like, no, like I want this to be something more. I obviously have things to say. I obviously have stories to tell. So I want to take that to the next level. And that's how I got into performing when I got into college.
Nice.
And whatnot. So, and why I write now, same reasons, to tell stories, to communicate with people, I like giving people pieces of me, and the ways I think, because I think everybody thinks uniquely. Let's put it like that. So I like people to hear my thoughts, and if I can do that in using literary devices like alliteration and things like that, I think it's a little more fun. But also poetry has been really freeing for me growing up. I grew up in a household where it was just me, my mom, my little sister. And so my mom was tough on me, and I love her for it. It made me who I am today. But there were times where it was like I felt my voice being limited. I feel like I couldn't really express
Yeah.
And so growing up, poetry really became that way for me to express how I felt about certain things and get it out. Because I would bottle a lot of things up, right? So that's really where I write. Um, I find it easier to write focused on me. And what I mean by that is more so, I find it very difficult to write if somebody's like tasking me, hey, write this
Yeah.
specific type of piece
Yeah.
or this specific type of event. I'm like, oh my, um, hmm, that's the pressure's on. It's a different type of pressure.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like, okay, I'm taking lived experience and putting it into a page using a pen. That's like, it's easier, but then I feel like there's more meaning and more value in that because I'm not conscripted or constricted to one particular thing. I can deviate and I can connect things. I like to connect things that seemingly don't connect. That's probably one of my favorite parts about writing.
Y'all taking us way deep.
We got another question from Mr. Jahari Mercer.
Okay.
What's a piece of advice or wisdom that you would give to up and coming artists and creators?
Just do the thing. Write your piece. Go to the open mic. Stick to your notebooks, and continue to create whatever medium you use. If you're somebody that draws, keep drawing. Don't stop drawing. Don't. Life is hard, and I know that goes without saying, but it has a way of quenching your creativity. Um, and so I'm saying to keep doing that so you don't become, because I also don't feel like you can lose that, right? It's just the thing about your creative gifts is where you leave off sometimes, um, is where you're going to be picking up too. And so for me, like I started out drawing, right? And then I stopped at around, maybe I was 20, 23 or something. And so every time I try to draw now, I'm meeting myself where I was. I'm re-meeting myself at 23. And it can be frustrating. And so to not frustrate yourself, to not, there's a D word I'm looking for. It's not disturb, disappoint yourself. Continue to do the things you love in the arts. Because when you're not getting the results that you feel like you should be getting, you may feel disappointment, discouraged. It may discourage you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So please keep creating, and also and know that the people, try not to compare yourself, because that's also a thing that is very fraught in the art community. Like try not to compare yourself or to compare your work to other people, to a point where it stops you from making anything, because we all start from somewhere. And even Natik will tell you that he observes other artists and learns from them. He watches videos on art all the time, daily, sometimes minute by minute, depending on when you catch him. Isaiah inspires me. Keep mentors in your life. And if you're older, don't be afraid to keep a youth mentor, because they'll teach you some new stuff. You know what I mean? That's a lot. That's a lot of suggestions.
It's all good. No, I completely agree, especially with the comparison piece, because I was there, right? Main reason I didn't tell people I wrote in high school was because my best friend was a poet. I didn't want to feel like I was going to step on his toes or try to outshine him, or
But you were biting him.
Right. So I was like, no, I keep it to myself. And I remember I told him shortly after we graduated high school, and I showed him the poem I wrote for my high school graduation. And he was like, dude, this is awesome. He's like, you just decided to write? I was like, no, bro, I've been writing for the past 4 years. He's like, what? I was like, why? He was so angry. Why did you not tell me? I didn't want to step on your toes. He was like, there's enough space for both of us.
Yeah.
Like, we're not competing with each other.
Right.
So that's, I completely agree with that. Don't compare yourself. Don't feel like you're competing with people. Only person you're competing against is yourself.
Yeah.
The only person you should be trying to outdo tomorrow is the person you are today.
Yeah.
Right? And I follow that to the T. And I think another thing with that is don't be afraid to experiment. And that's something I'm constantly learning and constantly have to remind myself. I think it's really easy for us as artists to get into the mindset. Like once you find your lane, you're like, okay, I'm good at this. Let me stick with it for a while. But remember what I said earlier, right? At some point that gets kind of boring. And so you gotta be able to like, okay, let me shake it up. Let me experiment. Let me try something new. Let me try something different. Let me try a new technique. And with that, trying those things without having any expectation of yourself. Right.
Yeah.
So whenever I paint, right, there are times where like if I'm working on a paint project, I'm working on that project. But I oftentimes find myself doing things like, for example, oh, I want to paint a night sky, right, for a specific project. I'm going to do, I guess, a throwaway project, one that I'm gonna keep for myself, and I'm gonna just practice. I'm gonna make sure I incorporate a night sky for that.
Yeah.
Just so I get the practice and I get the experimentation of like, okay, this is how I would do something like that. So when you go out and do it for your real thing, you have a little bit of experience and you've experimented a little bit. You can change things up. So that's my big tip. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to deviate. And there's space for everybody.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
There really is. And there was something that you said that there were two things that stuck out to me that I feel are important, and helpful. The community piece, right? Your friend encouraged you in the arts. And so, which says to me, you'll find your people. Your art family is out there. And you'll know that they're your people because they're going to encourage you to continue to grow in the art, in your genre, to pursue different things, to try new things, and encourage you, on your fledgling pieces. That was an incredibly vulnerable moment for you to share the piece that you wrote to somebody that had been doing it. You know what I mean? And he embraced you in that moment. And if it had went another way, it could have changed the trajectory of your life. And so, you'll find the people that will encourage you in the arts, that will help you grow, that will push your growth. Try not to be discouraged. And I keep talking about discouragement because discouragement is an art killer in a way. Like it'll keep you from pursuing your passions, the things that make you feel alive.
Right.
The other piece you said was about making things just for yourself, and that speaks to me in a number of ways, because being an artist is like being in a relationship, and you will start to, especially when you realize that people value your art, it can become about making things that will sell, and thinking about your audience, or thinking about the market and what will do well in the market, more than it becomes about you doing something just for you. And you can lose yourself in doing that. And Benita is right. Most of the time you will find your tribe is outside of your immediate community. Listen, all of us, I don't say all of us, most of us in the arts community, if you were to ask us who comes to our shows, it ain't our family. It's not our family. It's not our friends. It's not our church, the people in our religious organizations, spaces we're affiliated with, it's not those folks that come. And I read something the other day that said, you can't be mad at these folks because they've got their own passions, but you don't ask your coworker about his fishing that he's passionate about, and you don't ask your boss about their model car obsession and the cars they built and all that stuff. And I feel like actually, yes, we do. And I say that because hobbies are more accepted than art as a lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? And so for them to do that, sometimes it's accepted because grandma that makes her Afghans, that's a hobby for her. And if she sells one, it's cool, but this is not her livelihood to do this. This is something that she does to soothe herself. But there's not a whole lot of stake on that, emotionally or otherwise. But when we talk about art, the outcome of art and how one profits from that, and not that crocheting is a bad example because crocheting is art, but you know what I'm trying to say. The outcome of that and how you make a life as an artist, how you do it, especially when we're talking about things like writing, when we're talking about things like painting, you're creating something out of the intangible. How do you make people understand that what you do is important when it's not tangible and they can't just do it? Right. And so the importance becomes lost in a lack of imagination. And so because they can't understand how you do it, sometimes they don't understand why it's important to you or why it's significant. And they don't understand the impact of why them not coming to your thing, or why them not buying your book, or why them not going to your CD release pre-COVID, why all those things can feel hurtful. Mm-hmm. And so Benita is right. You usually will find your art community, your supportive community in the arts outside of your immediate community, because your immediate community takes you for granted in the sense that they engage with and relate to the you that they understand, which is you, the relative, you, the coworker, that discusses things that they can also do. But if they can't do it, they can't understand it. And if they can understand it, they don't understand why it's valuable. And if it's not valuable, why should they support it? Especially in Pittsburgh, where, and I know I'm getting long-winded, but we have to remember as people of Pittsburgh, as Appalachians, really, because we're just city Appalachians, that our roots are in a place where people literally dug stuff up out of the ground and casted metal and did all this stuff with their hands, right? So to them, work was something that results from striking things and digging up things and spending long hours in the dark all day, every day. And then that same energy transferred to education and medicine, your eds and your meds, right? Where's the art in all those things? Yes, we know, we can imagine it, but where's the art?
Right.
And I'm saying that to say they were paid from those things. Generations of people paid out of doing something that a lot of people could do. You're in the mill with people of all races, all religions, different classes, all of that, different generations of people. Everybody's doing it to make money for the American dream. But artists don't do that. And because we're deviants, people can't understand it and they can't support it. It's why Beyonce's concert didn't have a great outcome. Janet Jackson came, terrible attendance, because people here can't understand it. So to be an artist in Pittsburgh, to do your thing despite all of that, is a revolutionary act. And you have to keep doing it even when you feel discouraged, because some people just aren't going to understand it because they can't. Uh-huh. Mandy's saying, I get tired of people asking when I'm going to go on The Voice, like my art isn't valid for what it is without commercial, modern, popular media acceptance. Yeah, because they'll turn on the TV and now The Voice, because they've seen you on The Voice, now it's in a medium that is tangible to them.
Right. All right.
It makes sense. Oh, yeah, I saw Mandy on TV. You're obviously getting paid because you're on TV, right? They start seeing the dollar signs. Now it's important.
Right. Yeah, that's real.
So that was long-winded, y'all. My bad. My pulpit.
No, you good. You good. You spitting facts. You were spitting facts. So based off all that, I think you really touched on a very pivotal point. Being from Pittsburgh and being an artist, being in a place where I love how you said it. We come from a history where people dug stuff up and striking stuff, getting results, getting tangible results is what's important, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does race, ethnicity, equity, right? He talked a little bit about how all that influences being an artist for you.
Wow, that's a lot. How those things intersect there, because when we start talking about race and inclusion at the intersection of art and being in Pittsburgh, you see a shift almost immediately, because what happens is what happens for a lot of Black artists here. What happens is, if your people came from people like mine, where your granddad worked in the mill and your grandma cleaned houses in Squirrel Hill as a child, what you get is generate like this mindset of, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Like literally. And there's a way to do things. Like, my grandma had a way of folding up washcloths, and she taught my mother to fold them that way. And so I was folding them that way. And if I did it wrong, different, right? Now it's problematic. And it's a big issue because of that ingrained stuff. And it sounds like this is something like off the wall, but really it's Black folks in Pittsburgh do everything they do out of survival, because at one point, there were race riots here. There was segregation here. There was slavery here. There were all they'll teach you the Underground Railroad, but they won't teach you about the houses that kept the slaves. You know what I mean? All that stuff. In my case, my grandmother, like I said, as a child, cleaned houses in Squirrel Hill. They won't talk about little Black teenagers cleaning houses of the wealthy. You know what I mean? They won't talk about how bad segregation was so bad that Black folks had their own. There was an amusement park they had to go to because white folks didn't want Black people swimming. Kennywood used to have a pool. They didn't want Black folks swimming in the pool, and all the stuff that happened. Like the fact that the ambulance service and the jitney situation all came about because Black people didn't have access to hail cabs and stuff like that, or to get emergency services to take them, to the hospital. And so, saying all that to say, we are often discouraged by our community from becoming artists because in their mind, you'll die an artist where you could thrive as a nurse or, somebody that's in school for 1,000 years. You know what I mean? And so what that means for me is making art became something that I would do with very little recognition or very little. It wasn't really even discussed all like that. And it's still not. Like right now, we're on the cover of a paper. My mother doesn't know what to do with this information. Like, can't even acknowledge. So I stopped telling them when I got accolades for things because they literally don't know how to process it. And so like they'll hit you with I remember when you were in the other thing. Literally don't know how to like, you know what I mean? That isn't the life they planned for you. And so it can be a lonely space in a lot of ways. If that makes sense. I feel like I went down a few different roads there.
All necessary road stuff.
All necessary. That's a very Pittsburgh thing. Hit all the back roads before you
All
hit before you get to Lincoln. So what about for you?
Oh, ooh, bud. So for me, being Black and being an artist in Pittsburgh, it's really interesting because it's one of those weird things. It's like surreal, I guess is the word. It's like I feel like everything is great, but that's because I'm surrounded by people who make everything great. Right? So it's a little bit of disillusion. That's the word. So I'm a little disillusioned. I can be a little disillusioned at times, right? Because I know once I step outside the confines of the color section, right, then it's just like, oh, okay, well, and the spaces for Black artists come very few and far between in the city. Spaces that actually promote and uplift Black artists as they should. But on top of that, me being an engineer, I think adds another level of complexity too. Fun, but also complex in the sense that that's what I'm looked at. That's what I am looked at as, to a lot of people. They're like, oh yeah, he graduated in engineering. That's what we know him for. This art thing. Oh, okay, like yeah, he's good. And I got my supporters, right?
Yeah.
People are like, oh yeah, you're dope. Right? You're a good artist. But other than that, it's kind of just like, oh, you're an engineer.
Right.
And so it kind of goes back to that earlier question, like, why do you write poetry, right? Extend that out. Why do I continue to do art? For me, I've adopted it as one of my main missions is like to show people too that you can be more than just one thing, right?
Right.
What's the quote? A jack of all trades,
master of none, but it's
jack of all trades is a master of none, but still better than a master of one or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, like, and people tend to cut it off.
Yeah.
A person like jack of all trades, the master of none, right? And like it makes me think of Michael Jordan, and I took that personally. Like ever since I've been a kid, I've always felt like not looking at things like, oh, this is shiny, I want to pick this up, but like having a genuine interest in many different things, like the greats, Da Vinci and things like that, mathematician, astronomer, this, that.
Yeah.
Why can't I be that? That's what I think about when I think about artists.
Yeah.
Like, why can't I be that? And why can't I do that in a multitude of lanes? And so that's, like I said, I've adopted that as my mission to kind of just be like, yo, like, you can be a Black artist in this city, but you can be an engineer too. Or you can be whatever else you want to be. You want to be a nurse? Right. Cool. You want to be an educator? Cool. You can do all that. And I have people who support me in that. Like, they tell me all the time, right? You don't have to segregate your art life and your business life, right? Your school life, or whatever. They can intertwine. And I think it's in those intersections, it's in those folds, that fabric, where we end up getting, or we end up finding out who we really are and how we really are meant to exist in this world, or in the spaces that we reside in, and what impact that we are supposed to leave. So those are my thoughts on that. Natik is on fire in the background over there. It's coming out really, really dope. What we can see. So, and it's dope. And so while Crystal, Jahari, what he said, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Thank you. Yep, that's the trait, and that's the quote I live by, right? It's like I know I can be a master of, or I know I can be good at a lot of different things. Oftentimes I think I'd rather be good at a lot of different things because it keeps things interesting, right? Not to say that being a master of one thing isn't interesting, because it is. It comes with its challenges and its quirks and all that, but I think having a lot of different things to add to your repertoire is pretty cool.
So you can be a master at multiple things, and that can serve as one thing.
Yeah.
Like we talk about intersectionality, we talk about our different intersections and forming one another and becoming its own multiplicitous identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a part of those identities can be your art and your engineering and you as a writer or you as a leader, right? Or you as an activist. And you bring all of those things with you. And I see Crystal doing that in the community, and I see you doing that, Isaiah, in academia. I see so many of us at the Racial Justice Summit trying to bridge those things, right? And that's how we find equity in our community. Or that's what I hear you saying.
Yes. Yes.
Crystal's back.
He's back.
Now I can shut up.
You were so good though. You were so good though. So Benita is saying some Black artists in Pittsburgh have it double fold, not being appreciated or dismissed by white cultural community and then by their own Black creative community, or only being celebrated in the white creative circle and again not in the Black creative circle. As an artist or other professional living in Pittsburgh, it is a challenge, but as you mentioned before, you cannot allow it to stop you. So true. So true. And if you haven't already, y'all, Benita Lee Penn's book is on Amazon. Make sure that you get it. I've got it in my library myself. She came to one of our virtual open mics, killed it. And I was like, oh, I've got to get that in my life. So make sure you get that. And then Isaiah has a piece that he wrote about him being an engineer that I think would be appropriate I felt like I was listening like, this sounds like a segue. It should be a segue. I feel like he should manifest this.
Oh, yes. Let's see if I can. Okay.
And what I like about the piece is that it takes us on a walk through his childhood, through his life, like going through school and everything, all the stuff, that he talked about. I feel like it wraps it up really well. And while he's looking for that, I'll do the piece that I did, if it's okay. And so the great thing about having a community you're connected to, having your art family, is you make opportunities for one another. And so Isaiah presented us with the opportunity of leading a poetry seminar for a retreat the engineering department was having. And so I'm going to read to you first the questions that I had, and you can, of course, reflect upon them in your own way for your own life and the things that, like, as Benita has been asking, like, what is your why, essentially, for what you do? So these are questions to make a poem of your own. And so I made these things about poetry because, I'm not an engineer, but I write things, right?
You're an engineer of words.
I'm an engineer. Thank you, Isaiah. Thank you. So, question to ask yourself: what is your earliest memory? We'll say of doing what you love, right? How old were you, and what was it? What happened in that moment when you created the thing? How did it make you feel? Why did you choose it as an occupation? Why do you keep choosing it? Right? Because love is a choice, right? Like the people that you keep in your life is maybe like a partner or your friends. You keep choosing them, and for me, poetry is the same kind of thing. I keep going back to it, right? Um, who are you creating for in this sphere, right? Um, what do you hope your work does for those affected by it in the future, in a new time? How does what you create impact people? And this is just me, being having a little fun with it. In speaking to citizens of a future world that discover your creations, what do you hope they will take from it, if anything? What assures you in that future that you can go back to your timeline and what would make you stay? Right. So we can time travel a little bit. So with all those questions out there, I'm going to read this. Poetry arrived in my life somewhere between storybooks and psalms, Mother Goose and Teddy Ruxpin, Easter speeches in my mother's vinyl records on Saturday mornings, Stephanie Mills describing when she thinks of home, and Luther Vandross saying, "A room is not a house," and describing a bad boy climbing out the window to party down the block. My block was quiet with just enough kids to ask if anyone was allowed outside on Saturday afternoons, but not enough for kickball. Enough for three harmonies sung with the radio and starting friendship bracelets. Enough to cut through paths we stomped down into tall grass on quests for corner store candy and an extra slice of summer sky before school starts. And I read a lot because I learned that books talk to you in a way that people can't or won't or don't, without judgment or fear or prepackaged scorn for coming out of a child's place and into grown folks' business. I just like stories is all. Always been nebby, always wanted to help or be heard, and in words I found freedom. Freedom to be myself fully or maybe someone else. Somebody else characters and hip hop hits I memorized, recited like the Pledge of Allegiance, everything from Tribe Called Quest, Foxy Brown, Lauryn Hill, Little Kim, and Nas. Def Poetry Jam was the first time I ever saw or heard spoken word. It made me rethink all the poetry I'd heard or the boring stuff in school. I couldn't relate to Poe or Maya Angelou, but most Def sounded cool, or rather like me or who I wanted to be, shamelessly myself. In the pages of a notebook, sort of. All poets have pieces we're avoiding. The ones that haunt us like a raven's conscience. As an adult, I've toiled with them, looking fearless before my peers, appearing transparent, but really feeling more like I'm spiked with tourmaline because the pages will expose you. Those things you are compelled to write while your lover or your loneliness snores on the other side of the bed. Things like the color blue has been chasing you since Wednesday when you saw it on a faded photograph tucked in the back of your mother's dresser. How she keeps her dead ex's things and never moved on. How the sadness never left her eyes, even though he was terrible for her and for y'all, and she'd never say it out loud, but it's good he's gone. And I hope somebody gets free today after losing themselves on a page or on a stage or on a post-it note, napkin, church bulletin, lottery ticket, social media status type freedoms, AABB, haiku, prose, Valentine's Day poem type freedoms, the map that my ancestors saw in the stars and carved into 4Z hair type freedoms, walk off your job type freedoms, leave him sis and do you type freedoms, brown skinned girls feeling good about all their shades no matter what anyone tries to say type freedoms. In 1,000 years, I need to know this. This feeling, this drive to change lives one bar at a time is still present in the atmosphere. And when I'm gone, when a new technology has taken, The cyborgs better be saying something like, in 2022 AD, on a planet in another galaxy, the instructions were written for us to get free and to unplug ourselves from the machines. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So yeah, that was the pages will expose us to ourselves and the world. Yeah. Writing down the things that you think when no one is looking is terrifying. There is something that it's very vulnerable to put into words some of the stuff that keeps you up at night. Thank you, B. Nicole Smith. I thank you for that. I didn't want to type during it because it was all too good to get distracted. Thank you so much for that. But yeah, your internal thoughts sometimes are your truest self, right? And it's difficult because morbid thoughts are a thing too, right? The things that your brain thinks that are like super graphic, super terrible, the stuff that makes absolutely no sense, kind of those things exist too. But then there are the other things, right? Like this morning I woke up really early. Whenever there's a full moon, for whatever reason, I just can't sleep. And so I popped up at like 6 a.m. and I'm looking at the moon and the moon is looking back at me. And all I could think about is the mistakes that I made when I was like 18, 19, 20 in new relationships and all of that kind of stuff. I'm like, wow, that's embarrassing. Wow, I shouldn't have done that. Wow. Why am I thinking about this? Why am I torturing myself with that? You know what I mean? And so saying that to say that writing that though would take it to another level and contemplating what that means for me as an adult now, and maybe the grace that I should extend to that 19-year-old who's legal for the sake of legality, but that's still a child trying to figure out life, and so maybe I was thinking about her to reach back and give her some grace. I see you nodding, Isaiah. What you think?
I love it. that poem always gets me. It always gets me.
Well, y'all inspired that. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you. So thank you for that.
No doubt. No doubt. So it's funny, and it's one of the I'm going through one of them moments where you're like you hate to admit it because it's a rookie mistake. But that poem that I wrote that day, I don't know where it's at right now because I didn't digitize it like I should have. So I look through my notebooks. I'll have to keep looking.
It's cool, bro. It just wasn't for today.
It wasn't for today.
That's all.
But I have another one that's similar.
Word.
And it's my poem called Icarus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has a little bit of engineering in it. Not too much, but I can do that one.
Okay.
It hits the same point.
Okay. Because we're just poets trying to tell a story.
Yeah, So this is my poem, Icarus. To be an engineer is to be an explorer of cities, of landscapes, buildings, systems, chemicals, and all those other things that are important in their own right. But believe it or not, engineers are also explorers, creators, and facilitators of social normalcies as well. My sister, she spent her good years paving a path towards the future, and I like a child anxiously awaiting Santa's arrival on Christmas Eve, followed blindly, unaware of just how similar Deviance really is to the original. Within one standard deviation of my sister's means of making a way, my capability in school moved earnestly, with ease, as multifarious forms of passion developed endlessly. And I, as grateful as Icarus, received my wings with bliss and flew beyond a path laid out for me. With haste, I soared through the heavens, surrounded by gray cirrus clouds, raised fists, and an outpour of sunshine until I reached a valley where I landed for rest. And it was then that I realized just how far I had flown, how challenging it was. The journey extracted everything that I had, everything that I was, everything that I was meant to be. I was spent like a spilled glass of milk. I wept and let my brine return to its home, proud yet broken. With heavy wings and a vast wealth of experience, I too began my journey back until I remembered that deviance is eerily similar to originality. And within one standard deviation of me are the desires and fruits of my sister's efforts. Thank you.
You better go ahead, Icarus. You better go ahead. Wait, did you write that after the movie?
Mm-mm.
You wrote that before the movie? That is crazy.
Maybe. When did the movie come out?
This was before Jess's birthday, because we saw it for Jess's birthday.
Oh. Yeah, no. I wrote this before the movie. I wrote
That
this
is
before
crazy. Yeah. Bro. That's what I mean, man. I feel like poets are prophets, low key, and I don't think it's like like something that we're trying to do. But I've written things that have happened, and I go back and look like, bro.
Yes.
Because weren't they calling those things deviants?
Mm-hmm.
Bro.
Deviant, and then there was the character named Icarus. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Holy crap. That's crazy.
Yeah. But Icarus is also one of my favorite characters from Greek mythology. Yeah, it's Greek. Yeah. Yep. Because I see a lot of Icarus, and for those who don't know the story of Icarus, right? He gets a pair of wings from his father. His father makes him a pair of wings, and he flies. His father tells him, "Hey, you got these wings. Fly around all you want, but don't fly close to the sun because your wings will burn up."
Wow.
Because the wings were made out of feather and tar, right? So they catch on fire. And then Icarus, so excited by these wings, and being a child, was like, I'm a fly towards the sun. I'm a fly, right? Flies towards the sun, and his wings do burn off, and I believe he drowns. So it's like drowning in your own excitement. Right.
Wow.
And so growing up, I saw early performance. I saw a lot of myself in Icarus, just being so excited to chomp at the bit. And I'm gonna perform. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. Even being an engineer, like I talk about my sister, my older sister. She's one of my role models, and she has her PhD. She's an assistant professor at Carnegie Mellon. In bioengineering. So she's one of my top role models. And for so long, I chased after a shadow chased after her shadow, and told her that I want to be just like her. I want to be better than her, But I realized at some point throughout that journey, I lost myself. And I was spending a lot to try to be like somebody that I can never be because I am only me. Right?
Wow. There was a quote that was floating around Tumblr for a while, and I want to say it came from Twitter, but you know how things work on social media. Something starts somewhere, and then the screenshot lives somewhere else. But the author of it was saying that just because you spent a long time making a mistake doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. And it just like, bro, like at any point you can change the course of action, change your direction in life. And wow. You also made me think of something else. There's a song by Moses Sumney, and it's called My Wings Are Made of Plastic.
Oh.
Right? And if you've ever listened to it, it is like this beautifully haunting. His range is crazy, but I just now realized what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's probably, his Icarus story. But if you find it, I suggest people go on Spotify, find it, listen to it. He's dope, but that song in the context of this is like everything. Yes, Moses Sumney. I don't think you can listen to him if you're doing something important, because he'll mess around and take you to church real quick. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the intention, but you'll feel things, I guess is what I'm saying. Holy crap, Natik.
Yeah, I know. I just looked over to him. Oh, it's so good.
That is intense.
It's so good.
That is intense. I was talking to him about, finally, like, you can kind of see the makings of, he always includes a power symbol in his work. And the thought behind it is it's a reset button, among other things, to me. Like, but to him, it's the reset button, and being that he puts it in there thinking that we need to change our mistakes, right? Or we can start over because of things that were done in the past. And now we're talking about it, it makes me think about Sankofa, right? Because we know that means like, remember your history, go back and get that kind of a thing. But I've been thinking about getting it like tattooed somewhere on myself, like, because you can look at it and see for yourself at any point you can restart. You can have a new beginning and do this over, or you can cut this off and, recharge yourself. There's so many great analogies and thoughts that come out of that. So
yeah, and we stay there for a minute. Doing that work is not easy. Right? It's not easy at all. It's very heavy work. It takes a lot out of you, right? You have to give a lot of yourself in order to reset and to break old chains, right? To get rid of habits, things that became habits that weren't supposed to become habits in the first place.
Right.
It takes a lot of work. And one of my favorite poems that I'm going to share with you here, it's not my poem at all. It's actually, I'll put this book up. From one of my mentors, Crystal knows him well, Mr. Amiola.
Come through.
Oriola.
With the J.
His books,
Come
Thorns
through.
and Thistles, A Message from Dust to Dust.
With the art by Natik on the cover.
With the art by Natik on the cover. Yep. See, Crystal said it earlier, right? We give everybody an opportunity. Everybody eats.
Everybody eats. Period.
Everybody eats. And so just thinking about resetting and getting rid of bad habits. Whenever I feel like I'm in that process or I'm working through something, I'm like, okay, I really got to get over this. I have to work through it. I have to churn through it, right? I always come back to this piece, and this piece it's the first piece out of his book. It's called When Gravity Speaks. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. Samuel Johnson. So what is it that you want? A poem? Your fig leaves are too small. I can see you. I know your type of chains. You want uncommon love without common sense. You want free will without consequence. You want the Garden of Eden without God.
Come on.
You want to be led by his staff, but you don't want to feel his rod because you're grown, huh? You want your own place, your very own Tower of Babel. You don't want to share a room with your conscience anymore.
Jesus.
No, you want to live beneath yourself. You still want to know what will destroy what you're not ready for. You clearly want history to repeat itself, don't you? I know your type of change.
Wow.
You are a prisoner of your passions. Samson and Delilah in one body, you are a walking simile. Your love is chained to lust. You pray for a pillow, but will settle for a pretty guillotine, anything that lets you rest.
Jeez.
You're a slave to your hunger. You eat whatever people feed you. Your love will gladly digest the lie, all because you need people to need you. I know your type of change.
My God.
You want the poems, but you don't want the prophecy in the poetry.
Come on.
You want to make a parade for your pain. You want to look powerful, but you don't want the potency. You want fire without the burn. You want semen without the sperm. You want to be loved, to be loved, but you don't want to humble yourself enough to learn. Let's be real. You don't want to get impregnated by these words. Your ears, they're still virgins. You just want to be stimulated, and that's fine. Tell me something. Do you think those chains on you are for foreplay? Do you think slavery was just S&M being simulated? Do you think torture is a game, that the Passion of Christ is better as a Disney movie, maybe pixelated? Oh, I get it now. You want the cartoon version of his crucifixion. You want to watch the Grinch who stole Jess's name. You want to drink his precious blood on the rocks, the new covenant mixed with some Coke and Hennessy. It makes a shame go down more smoothly. You want his grace, but not the truth. Gets lonely sometimes, so you want to cuddle with the comfortable side of sin. You want the 21st century barbarous, the people's choice. Anyone will do, but not Jesus, not him. I know your type of change.
God.
Matter of fact, I see them. I feel them. They're begging you right now, asking you not to reveal them. I know them because I've had them. We're all prisoners of the same thing. And since we're all family here, same leaves, let me personally tell you about this chain gang. You see, this chain, the one in your wallet, it wants you to make a living, but it doesn't want you to be alive.
God.
Getting crumbs will be a luxury to you. All you will know is how to survive. You see, this chain, the one in your eye socket, it wants you to want a wedding, but not a marriage. A vagina that cooks, but not a wife. A spineless statue, but not a husband. A sanctuary, but not the sacrifice. You see this chain, the one in your chest? It's the most deceitful of them all. It wants applause for doing what it's supposed to do, for beating, for showing up. It's the Houdini of the body. It will trick you into eating the very habits you just finished throwing up. You know, emptiness. Always starts off light and it looks safe, but just give me some time. I, gravity, will always show you its real weight. You don't believe me? Well, let's see. A dream deferred can hurt you, but a decision deferred will haunt you.
God.
You seem like you want to be free from them chains, but them chains are the only ones that seem to want you. So the question remains the same. What is it that you really want? A poem? Still? No. I hope I have offended you. I hope your chains snore while you go to sleep. You wanted me to speak about life, but did you realize that this life went this deep? Do you wish my words had dentures, that their teeth were less sharp, more hollow? Should I chew on reality a little more like baby food, make it much easier for you to swallow? Tell me, if salt had lost its flavor, its savor, then what is its purpose? What's the point of saying you're his light on earth if you only light what's on the surface? I'm an arsonist who just so happens to speak in cursive. My tongue is a match, the pen of a ready writer. I speak what is written until the words catch on fire. I have no desire in kindling your dry leaves. nor in fanning the flames at the top of your trees. I deal with the roots, the hidden spinal cord of excuses where nerves are at. I may look like a common thermometer, but I speak as the thermostat. Relax. I'm not special. I simply change the temperature by already saying what has been spoken. Do you remember? The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken.
God, my God.
So again, Mr. Emiola J. Oriola, Thorns and Thistles, the first poem in the book, When Gravity Speaks. That is a poem I go back to on the regular.
Jesus.
It's one of them poems. I said, like, if there's something I really like, I was like, it's one of them. It's one of them. It's just one of them pieces that's just like,
ooh.
You read my whole life,
bro.
You don't even know me.
Jay came for your edges, your scalp, your new growth. He came for your, like, I feel wild uncomfortable right now.
Right. And it's one of those pieces that's like, you feel uncomfortable after reading it. Everything has been taken from you, but it was done gracefully.
Yeah.
Even the I hope I've offended you. It's like you feel that you're like, whoa. Yes, I am offended, but with good reason. Like you called me out on my stuff, and it's so appreciated.
It really
I appreciate it. I appreciate Jay. I know Crystal appreciates Jay, and we all appreciate Jay for his work.
Yes.
And his words. So yeah, go add that one to your library too.
It's so funny where I was talking about the things that haunt you. It's like you can feel the eye, you know what I mean? The watcher, in the sense where usually, like, to a degree, we're aware of like the omnipresent watcher in our lives and being conscious of or semi-conscious of whomever it is observing what you do. But it's like you don't think about it so much when you're in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're sitting on the side of the bed first thing in the morning and you're figuring out, if you're going to brush your teeth or if you're going to, go straight for the almond milk kind of a situation, or what you're going to do the day, if you're going to clock in, all that different stuff. And I felt like Jay saw me there trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And that is terrifying.
Very much so.
Wow. But thank you for sharing that and bringing him to us, giving him to the audience and his words. Oh wait, Benita Lee Penn quoted Toni Morrison saying, "Want to fly? You got to give up the shit that weighs you down." From the Song of Solomon. As a creative Black person, be you, be free. Don't allow or foe to have you second guessing your path. We are the fire. That's so real.
Yes, indeed.
That is so real. That is so very real. I love how encouraging the poetry community here can be. I feel like amongst each other, for the most part, it's a communal experience where it's not that we're trying to be poets, but we definitely, like, amongst ourselves, we can write things that speak to each other in a way that nobody else could say it. You know what I mean? So thank you for that, Benita, and for that reminder, and even in bringing Toni Morrison to remind us. We are about the 5-minute mark. And so I'm wondering if anybody else has any questions that they would like to ask, or if there's any pieces from anybody that they would like us to read for you. And while they're doing that, Isaiah, I'm going to ask you. So, whenever you leave spaces like this, how do you decompress? Because I feel like we went over some real heavy stuff, some very vulnerable stuff, some very like, especially you read Jay stuff, and now you like feel naked. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So when you, after coming away with something that forces you to either be or feel transparent, how do you ground yourself, for lack of a better word, after that?
Yeah. It really depends on how deep we go. Something like that. That's gonna take it's gonna take a minute for the dust to settle.
Bro.
You know? But I tend to sit in it, right? When I was younger, and I mean honestly, not too far long ago, right? I still, even today, still I tend to run away from it. Like, no. We're not going there today, you know. But I think as I've worked with y'all, of course, worked with different people, and I've learned to force myself to sit in the uncomfortability, because that's where the plants grow from, right? I call it doing the root work. That you don't
Wow.
you don't, and Jay said it in the book, in the poem, right? You don't take care of a plant by watering it. But if the plant is not growing and you're still watering it, well, there's something wrong with the roots, right? So you got to dig into that soil. You got to get your hands dirty with it, right? And so I've learned to kind of force myself, like, okay, what's causing? I feel some type of way, you know. What do I do with that? What caused that upset in my soil, right? Why did it cause the upset in my soil? So I tend to sit there and I think about it for a little bit, and then sometimes, right, pen gets hot, words catch on fire, and you start writing. But sometimes it's just sitting there, and it's just thinking about it, reflecting on it, and then moving forward with it, right? And committing yourself to moving forward with it in whatever that looks like for you. It's not the same for everybody. Right?
Yeah.
How about you?
So I'm gonna be super transparent. There's been a lot of like, personally, like some really like traumatic things that have happened like within the last few months. And I haven't been allowing myself to really process it because I've still got shit to do. And Natik will tell you that he asked me, like, after work, like, why don't you just cry it out, or, take the time to just cry and just let it out. And I was like, I can't. I don't have time. I can't afford to have the nervous breakdown that I need to have, the cry that I need to have is going to take a week. So I can't do it. And so I think I've been on this path of like avoiding my feelings in a way, because I feel like the doing that kind of work will put me in a place where I won't be able to do the work that gets the bills paid. You know what I'm saying? And so trying to figure out how to do that is hard. Like I don't even know. I don't know where I'd even begin. So I've just been like out here macking, like the trains around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's going to be a snowstorm, and I guarantee that train is still going to roll through Homewood,
right,
across the bridge, or roll through Homestead anyway. And just do my best to not crash, I guess. Run off the rails, whatever. And I feel like in that work, there's something, of course, beauty comes out of that, healing comes out of that, but that shit will derail you for a little bit. And the times we live in don't allow you the ability to truly feel all of it. So you become like a living callus, if that makes sense, where you can feel, but you can't feel everything. They see you, but they don't see all of you because you're underneath that. But anyway, I can talk about that kind of stuff and feelings forever, y'all. I guess that's our time. Are we're 2 hours? That's our time. It's been cool hanging with everybody and to talk with you, Isaiah, and to hear each other's pieces. Before we roll, though, I would love to see what Natik is doing back there, what he's constructed out of our conversation. And then did he just make hair happen?
Yes. I just watched it and I can't process it. Like, how did you do that?
It was like a mushroom cloud in a way, because I swear that wasn't there before. And then it just happened. And
the motion is just so fluid too. Just
right. Here's some hair.
I guarantee if I try and do that, it's just gonna look like a bunch of scribbles.
Right. But that's the great thing too about him. Natik is going to be doing drawing lessons. Of course, it's for us at the colored section. We're going to be in there thugging it out with our notebooks and things like that, trying to make these drawings happen. But these drawings happen in real time. Learning how to be better artists. But if you are interested in getting drawing lessons from Natik or participating, you're also welcome to participate in that, where it would be on a Zoom on a Thursday evening. I believe we decided upon is what we're doing is Thursday evenings. So Natik, we want to see it. I can't take him.
Not the Will Smith.
I cannot take him. Can we talk to you about it, Natik Jalil? Thank you, Natik Jalil.
It was good.
Hey.
Oh.
So So what did you take from all of our thoughts, and what did you think about all of it?
Well, like I started adding green to it when you guys started talking about money. It was going to start out being a happy face. However, it's not always a happy place where we are in this world. We make do. We make the life that we live, the oppression that we suffer, the struggles that we continue to have, we make it look cool with the art that we do. To the point where there's people that want to be oppressed. And so at the end of the day, it's still, we're being oppressed. Things are not equal. Things are not equitable. And we have to make roads for ourselves. We have to make paths. And so regardless of how beautiful things look on the surface, there's still a certain amount of trepidation. There's still a certain amount of frustration and stuff that we experience. And even though the art we make from our pain looks beautiful, there's still pain underneath. And so this is dealing with that pain that's underneath. I couldn't give her a smiley face. She's gritting her teeth. She has bags under her eyes. She's building color from nothing. She's struggling to find that power within. So that's kind of where I am going with this.
Mandy's asking, when you're done with it, when you're done with us, can you post a picture and link it and post it in the chat so if everybody can see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
Dope.
Absolutely.
I love the rainbow
Yeah.
coming from the power. It looks like she has wings that are on fire.
Right.
Yeah, but that's partially from the Icarus part of the conversation.
Mhm.
You know, like people act like they want to be oppressed, but once again, you're trying to fly too close to the sun. When you get burnt, don't have a Pikachu face on.
Wow.
You know, like oppression isn't as pretty as we make it look.
Say that. Say that.
Yeah.
Say that.
Like this shit hurts. So yeah, that's where I'm going with it.
Awesome. Do you have any questions for us?
I don't.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your art. I can't take him, y'all. This is every day with me and him talking to each other. I cannot. Thank you for sharing your work with us, your time, your expertise, your ability to internalize what we feel and transmute that into something tangible. Thank you so much to our audience that participated, that continued to give us things to think about, that included us in your art, so to speak. Especially thank you to Benita Lee Penn for being a part of this with us. And B. Nicole Smith and Deja is going to come to us with some information about the summit.
Hey, beautiful people.
Ooh,
Thank you for your time. That was amazing.
thank you.
So as you can see in the chat, I'm really over here just pulling all the quotes out. You can also find them on my Twitter. All the artists will be tagged. My Twitter is at Deja D Writes, at DaejaDWrites. You can obviously find the live streams on both of our pages. The Colored Section Arts page on Facebook and the Pittsburgh Racial Justice Summit page on Facebook and on YouTube. So to close this out, I do want to say that we brought you here to this space to show that equity in action is not just an academic stance, right? We chose that because we're choosing that for our community. We're choosing to show that through art. We're choosing to show that through think pieces, through workshops. We're choosing to show that through wellness. We're choosing to show that through community together. So attend the Racial Justice Summit. It will be starting on Friday, the 21st, this coming Friday, and going all through Saturday, the 22nd. The 21st, you will see our keynote speakers, Brian Broom, Bisha Filia, and Damon Young. They're going to do a fireside chat, which is just really them probably going to be cutting up. I'm excited. And Saturday, we have a myriad of workshops and panels and presenters and facilitators that will be with us. We're going to be, Tim, our founder, and myself just walking people through what the summit is on Friday. And leading into Saturday, we're going to have like a community connection room and a community resource room where you can hang out with us and you can hang out with community organizations. And it's going to be bomb. We're going to chill. We're going to learn. We're going to think. And we're going to grow together this weekend. And that's what I'm super excited for. It starts here. It started with the work that we're all doing to connect with each other in the community. And this is a piece of that. So thank you all for being here today. I don't know if our artists want to have anything to say. If we can show Natik in the background again. There we go. He says, "What up?" Also, goodbye. It looks like.
It was dope being here. Appreciate y'all time. And yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah. Anywhere,
Yeah,
just look up Isaiah Spencer. I'll pop up somewhere. You'll see me.
yeah, I tagged some of y'all's pages on Facebook and everyone on the Twitters. They're in the chat here. It's on my page, and everyone is tagged in all those things. So you can watch this, or you can go to my Twitter, and you can see the links for the lives. And you can also see people tagged for their Twitter and the Facebook pages as well.
Nice. Thank you so much for having us, the colored section especially. Thank you for allowing the colored section to come through and be a part of all this. And to everybody that's listening, we hope you have a great weekend and that you think about everything that we said. Write your own pieces, create your own things, and don't let what everybody may think or say about you creating hold you back.
And thank you all for coming through. You know, we're trying to make this a regular thing. And I'm excited to see what we can get into the winter and into the spring, to keep you all engaged, because the summit is not just a one weekend thing. It's a community, and we're a part of the larger community, seeking equity for ourselves and everyone. So we're going to be out here. And I'm sure we'll have the colored section back, hopefully, and we'll do this again. Thanks for showing us that online presence is not the same as in person, but online presence can be everything that you feel in person as well. Appreciate you.
No doubt.
All right, now I guess we say goodbye for now. See y'all.